When watching the trailer for Boogie, I actually took down a few notes because a couple of things stood out to me. I do agree with how your outlook was. Like, on the surface, it's about an Asian American who's experiencing a lot of racial issues trying to get into the NBA, trying to be a professional basketball player. And that's just on the surface. I feel like you can dive in a lot deeper to go, like, and kind of look into even what the movie would be like or the character's life would be like just from the trailer. In the beginning, the line they say is talking about how as immigrants they never expect freedom or equality, like totally. Um, so I think that it is like kind of leading into what the story is going to be like, that he's going to have to work really hard because he is probably a second generation Asian American kid who his parents immigrated here to give him a better life. Um, I feel like it gives that shock value and that interest, like you talked about in the lecture video. Um, because he is different. He's not the usual, like, going down the usual path that Asian parents usually lead their children on. His mom is very disappointed in him. As they say in the movie, it's kind of like a torn between his mom, who is really responsible and very disappointed in him, but his dad, who is very irresponsible but believes that he can achieve his dreams to be in the NBA. They even have a scene where he's apologizing to his coach, and his principal like gets down on his knees and talks about how it's such a big part of their culture to do that, to respect, and without respect that there's nothing. But that takes a deeper look into, his parents don't know life here. So how can he fully respect them if, like, for example, his mother doesn't fully respect his wishes, especially in this new place. Like, he's in between cultures. He doesn't really have anywhere to fit in. Even in, I think it's in New York, Queens, or Brooklyn, even in that area where there's a lot of, like, different people, he's still being targeted racially, and that is being used against him just solely for the fact of the NBA. Because even he says, you don't really see an Asian basketball player. So that's a big point for him, and the guy goes around calling him egg roll, making fun of him. But then he does have the girl whose name it doesn't mention, I don't think, or I don't remember if it does. She comments about how he needs to believe in himself, like how he believes in his Chinese culture. Because I feel like he does believe in this pressure from his mother for success. Because, they gave everything they had to be able to come to America. So it's kind of like this pressure for all or nothing. Like, you're successful or you're not. And they don't have a second chance. I feel like that, will take into account a lot of the decisions that he tries to make throughout the movie or throughout his story. And it can be a lot of pressure on him for, like, just his life and his decisions, because he wants to do and accomplish his dreams, but he also wants to make his family proud. He says something like 500 years of Chinese heritage he needs to back up and make reason for. He wants not only to make his family proud, but he wants to make, like, history, Chinese culture, NBA player that is Chinese. And I feel like in the trailer, the girl that he's with is right. If he believes in himself more, just like he does with his culture and his ability to play, that he can accomplish those things. And that his mom will see that it's a viable thing that he can accomplish and achieve and become successful in. Dad does believe him, but you gotta think mom and dad are probably separated based on what was seen in the trailer, because he was getting arrested and she was having a hard time paying bills. So it's like, who do you go to? It's kind of like a good versus evil. Like, what side do you choose? How do you move on? How do you make your own choices for yourself? kind of coming of age story. And I feel like that really gives a lot of interest, especially now, because it brings into light a little bit more of the culture. Because I know there was a lot of things said recently because of COVID and, Chinese culture, especially things that had been said about it being like a Chinese virus and things like that. That's not true. You don't need to discriminate somebody based on their like race or culture or religion, anything, and blame something that they have no control of on them. Like just because nobody else in the movie or had ever been a Chinese or Chinese American NBA player doesn't mean that he couldn't. And he was getting discriminated for that highly and not being taken seriously. So I feel like it can bring a lot of good things to light, especially about like Chinese culture and Chinese American culture today, because we kind of need something to ease back in. I know there have been a lot of things recently about like there were some protests in Lexington, I believe, about stopping like Asian racism and Asian hate, as well as all the BLM movements and stuff like that, because ever since COVID and the remarks of the former president, they've just gotten a lot of like berating. So I feel like it could definitely bring like a positive result to see like the behind the scenes of the culture, behind the scenes of somebody who is Asian American, who is living this life of kind of not knowing really where they fit in, trying to make something out of themselves.